this is Zeus Chanukah, the 8th night of Chanukah. This is the Or HaGenuz night. And Chanukah is like the educational process. The Gra compares growing ruchnis-wise like climbing a mountain. If you're climbing stairs, right, you can't really fall too far. You happen to skip a step and miss and fall down. Basically, worst comes to worst. Usually, you fall on the top of the stairs, hurt your leg, but you pick yourself up and you walk, a little bit further. If you're climbing a cliff, climbing a mountain, you skip a step, and you miss the place where the spike's supposed to go, then you can fall down even further than you were before and cause yourself destruction, God forbid. And that's how ruchnius is. You have to put your peg in and ground yourself and be strong, and then pull yourself a little bit higher. So Chanukah, you start the first night with 1, right? The Shittas Beis Hillel, and then you build up 2 and 3 until finally the 8th night when you're supposed to be a kli for the Or HaGenuz. But the question is, what are we talking about? What does it really come down to? What does it really mean? What are we trying to accomplish? There's a lot of talk about Chanukah, a lot of shirim about the depth of Chanukah. But in the end, I think for the most part, Chanukah comes in. We light the menorah. It's a wonderful chag. It's very, it's a beautiful time of year to be doing this. Basically, the weather's been great, fantastic, Baruch Hashem. And but how much of a hashpah does Chanukah actually have? It was the last chag. It was the last exile that we dealt with before going to the Roman exile, basically, and that gave us the keys, the clue. Chanukah really provides the key to survival in Galus until the end of days. I mean, as we point out that every chag that we celebrate, especially the ones from the Torah, is like a window of opportunity. It's a window of time when a light from a different period of time is allowed to shine in. So the Leshem explains the Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, and Shmini Atzeres, and these chagim, they are really the light of the period of time of Techis HaMeisim. So in Techis HaMeisim, these lights stop shining. Yom Kippur and Purim itself and Shabbos, they keep being chagim even in Techis HaMeisim, because their light belongs to Olam Haba. So what's going on during the holiday itself is that the door opens to a different period of time. The light of the world to come comes in on Yom Kippur. You open, as long as you celebrate the day properly and you observe it properly, so you become a kli for light from a different period of time. It's like a whole different reality. Likewise, Purim as well, and Shabbos as well. Right? Shabbos is the 7th millennium. So there you're getting into the 7th millennium. The light belongs to that period of time. So the moment you get to that period of time, right? What does it mean Yom Shukulu Shabbos? In a time that's Yom Shukulu Shabbos, do you have to keep Shabbos anymore? Is there Shabbos anymore? It's not Shaykh anymore. There's no Malach anyhow at that point in time. But it's not Shaykh because every day is Shabbos. Because the light of Shabbos belongs to the period of time between 6,000 and 7,000. So you get to that period of time, the light shines all the time. You don't need a day that's unique to be able to access that light. Likewise, when you get to the 8th millennium, then Yom Kippur stops being a holiday because it's Yom Shekulo Yom Kippur, right? It's a time that every day is Yom Kippur. The light is every single day. Likewise, in Techis HaMeisim, the light of Pesach and Shavuos and Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres and these chagim, it's there all the time.
Could you go through that slower? I'm not following
the concept, the idea itself.
Yeah. In other words, you're talking about the different chagim have a different light.
Yes.
And they're for a specific period.
They belong. Why is there a day called Pesach? Why is there a unique day called Pesach or Shabbos or Yom Kippur? So we look at it mostly because of that's Kosh Baruch Hu was Koveya. That's the day to celebrate those holidays. Something happened historically on those days, and we're commemorating them by celebrating them on the days they actually happen. But according to Kabbalah, it's a little bit different. It's more to do with the fact that whatever happened on those days happened because a certain light came into creation at that time that allowed the world to function at a whole different level of reality. So we have Pesach because the light of Pesach is not here in the world. All year round, that light's not here. If that light was here all year round, you wouldn't need a special day called Pesach because it would be here all the time. Right? What would be the point of having Pesach on the 15th of Nisan if every day it's the same light? Right? What makes Pesach unique is the fact that once a year, for 7 days, but specifically the first day itself, once a year, it's a whole different level of reality. That's why it's unique, right? So if you get to a period of time when that uniqueness is gone, for example, this is where I'm really building to. The first holiday to be batal is Chanukah. The first holiday to stop being celebrated is Chanukah. Purim comes much later on. Why Chanukah? Because Chanukah is the light of Yemos Mashiach. Thank you. So Yemos Mashiach, right? That's already the period of time where Chanukah is every day. In Yemos Mashiach, the light that we enjoy right now from the 25th of Kislev until the end of the Chag itself, right? Today was the first, so tomorrow is the second, until the second of Tevis, right? From 25th until the second of Tevis, that's a light that's miyuchad right now to this period of time. So you can only access it during this period of time. That's why the Chashmonaim had the miracle happen this time. The Mishkan was completed on the 25th day of Kislev because it's all part of the same energy, the same light. But in Yom Mashiach, when that light will shine every single day, you won't be able to have Chanukah because every day will be Chanukah at that point in time. So that's what the lesson was explaining, that as we go through history and we go further in time into to higher levels of light, the holidays start dropping off because as you go higher up the light of that holiday becomes every single day. So in Techiyas HaMeisim, the light of the Shlosh Regalim, that's the light of that period of time. That's the high level light of the period of resurrection of the dead. At that time, that light will shine all the time. Okay, there'll be different days. One will be Pesach, one will be Rosh Hashanah, one will be Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres. But it's the light of that period of time, so therefore you don't need a time or day that's miyuchad to get to that light, because the light's there all the time. That's the point, right?
Why is it that when we say that that Purim and Hanukkah will be the only holidays that will exist?
So that's actually
what does that mean?
That's a misquote. It's Purim and Yom Kippur.
Right.
Will not be batal in the future, but it means until 6,000 they will still be chagim. Eventually they'll also be batal. Chanukah is the one that they always call Chanukah in that grouping, but the truth is Chanukah is batal right away in Yemos Mashiach because it is the messianic light. It belongs to that period of time.
So why is Purim going to continue though?
Because Purim is mushrash in the sphere of Chachma, the Leshem explains, which basically only the six sfirot. They operate the 6,000 years. Chesed is the first 1,000 years, Gevur is the second 1,000 years, and finally Yesod is the sixth 1,000 years, basically. Keser, Chachma, and Bina, they don't come into play until Olam Haba. So from 6,000 to 7,000, it's actually the Malchus. The Malchus goes up at that point. Now, it's a little Kabbalistic, but that's when the Malchus goes up. It actually goes higher than the other six because it gets pulled up. So that's between 6,000 and 7,000. Between 7,000 and 8,000, that's when the sphere of Bina starts to control history. The history will be on the level of Bina at that point in time, which is already the reality of Olam Haba at that time, at that stage. So the light of Purim, the light of Yom Kippur, is the light of Bina. So between 7,000 and 8,000, that you'll be experiencing the light of Yom Kippur every single day, all the time. And Purim is from 8,000 to 9,000. It's the last one.
Why is Purim higher than Yom Kippur?
Because it's the Chachmas, the Das. That's why it's such a holy day. Yom Kippurim, right?
So
Yom Kippurim
is light point. So
exactly.
So it's a lower level than Yom Kippur. In other words, it's comparing itself to Purim. So Purim being higher.
Exactly. So it's the last light. That's why it's such a phenomenally holy day, Purim. But we don't necessarily treat it that way. But it's actually an ultimately higher level of light. So therefore, Purim is the last holiday to be batal because it won't be batal until the light of Chachma is controlling creation, which is way up there. It's a very, very high level of Olam Haba. And then eventually all the Chagim will be batal because the energy of that, eventually from 9,000 to 10,000 and onward, it's already way past that. The level of light couldn't be experienced in this world on any Chag whatsoever. So
what's batal during the time of the Mashiach then?
Is Chanukah, just Chanukah, and then after during Techiyas HaMeisim is the Shlosh Regalim, Rosh Hashanah, Shmini Atzeres, and it's all part of that package over there. Yeah.
And then it gets to Yom Kippur, and then to
Well, for Shabbos, Shabbos will be batal between 6,000 and 7,000.
Shabbos is after the Shlosh Regalim.
Exactly.
And then comes Yom Kippur.
Exactly, and then Purim. Yeah,
that's interesting that Shabbos would come before Yom Kippur.
Shabbos Shabbaton. Right, it's the Shabbos of all Shabboses.
Right. Well, see, the thing is that there's a question about that. I think isn't there more about that says. It wasn't one of the Tanoim, I think it was Rabbi Akiva that said that Yom Kippur was higher than Shabbos, and everybody disagreed with him because when it says Shabbos, because you would have the Havamina, since it says Shabbos Shabbaton, that you would have more restrictions. But the irony is you have less restrictions on what do you call it?
The Shabbos?
Yeah, because you're able to eat on Shabbos. You know, you're able to.
Right, there's less restrictions on Shabbos.
In other words, Shabbos is higher because on Yom Kippur you're not able to benefit from having that physical aspect.
Right, but that's because you become like a malach. That's why Chazal are very specific. You're not eating on Yom Kippur, not as a fast, not to cause yourself tsar. Even though the lashon of the Chumash is inu nefesh, right? On a practical basis to inspire tshuva, but hashkafically we're told that the whole reason for fasting on Yom Kippur, as opposed to the other 4 fast days of the year, is not for the sake of causing tsar. Each other fast day, like the one coming up next week, B'ez Hashem, is to the fasting itself is to cause a reduction of the fat of the body, so to speak, in place of the karbanas that are missing, and to connect us up to the tsar of not having a base of mikdash. But Yom Kippur we don't eat because malachim don't eat, right? So the emphasis on Yom Kippur is you've got to a very high spiritual level. Ad kedei kach you can say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchusum out loud, like the malachim do, like the angels do, right? So Yom Kippur invariably is on a higher level than Shabbos itself, which is why Shabbos gets pushed off. Other chagim get pushed off because of Shabbos for the most part, right? As long as it doesn't interfere with Shabbos, you can do it. But the moment the chag interferes with Shabbos, you push off the chag for the sake of Shabbos, whereas Yom Kippur pushes off Shabbos completely.
We can't eat on Shabbos.
Yeah, because we get to a much higher level than eating. And Purim is is a higher level on top of that, where you can achieve the same kedusha of Yom Kippur through the eating, right? By being there, right? So this is partly a Purim shir and partly a Yom Kippur shir.
Don't assume we know all this.
But the point is that Chanukah itself, just for in terms of what we're talking about right now, Chanukah itself is batal Yemos Mashiach because that's the light of Yemos Mashiach. That's what we're experiencing during the Eidos of Chanukah is the light of Yemos Mashiach. That's the basic idea. So what does that actually mean practically speaking, and what are you supposed to do with that? How does it really change anything? And what's the musar haskel the Chanukah gives to us? We're supposed to leave with that should change us and change the world and rectify my separations and mitigate the anti-Semitism and just make things better all around. So to appreciate that, there's a few ways of doing it, but I think one of the best ways is to look at a mice in the Gemara. I mean, obviously we brought this mice up before. It's one of my favorite stories for the Gemara because of the Mesiras Nefesh. We always read about the Surah Malchus on Yom Kippur and on Tisha B'Av, the 10 martyrs who died. One of the most explained and drawn out stories is the one of Chanim ben Terajin. Right? Chanim ben Terajin basically is he's told by his Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma that the Romans have control right now. Kadosh Baruch Hu allowed them to destroy the Beis Hamikdash. He allowed them to take over the land, to interfere with Torah. You can't teach Torah b'Rabbim, and if you keep doing it, they'll get you too. And the whole dialogue that goes on in the Gemara there. It's also very interesting.
Where's the Gemara about?
That's in Avodah Zorah on Yud Ches Amud Aleph, and there's a lot of information to do with that story with Purim and just in general with the idea of being a zealot. But the end of the story is perhaps the most important part of the story, and that is they do capture him immediately after his Rebbe dies. The Romans come back. They catch him teaching Torah b'Rabbim in public. They take him. They take the Sefer Torah which he was using. They wrap him in it. They put wet sponges on his chest to make sure he dies slowly, and then the story begins to unfold. Right there, he is burning to death with the Sefer Torah, and his daughter comes up and says, to see you like this up is like so painful, so difficult. I don't think I can survive this. And he comes back and he says, if it was only me burning right here, it might be a problem. But since there's a Sefer Torah also burning with me, then the same God who's going to avenge the disgrace of the Sefer Torah will avenge my disgrace too. I mean, that's the whole issue over here. The fact that God will avenge you. What about the fact you're burning to death? I mean, that's all you're concerned about. His Talmidim come up after that and say, Rebbe, what do you see? And he says, I see Osi is flying to Shemayim and parchment burning, right? Or the other way around, parchment burning, but Osi is flying to Shemayim. Another is saying, basically, that my body will burn, but my neshama will go on. The Romans can only affect you so much. And then they tell him, Rebbe, open your mouth and allow the fire to enter your mouth so you can die faster and save yourself some suffering. And he comes back and he says, no, but, God who gave me my soul, he'll be the one to take it away from me. I will not commit suicide, not even a little bit. And this whole thing's going on. In the meantime, the Roman executioner, who's got to be like the lowest of the lows, in Rome. I mean, he's not just a Roman, but he's an executioner for the Romans, right? And he's watching this whole thing take place, and he all of a sudden, out of nowhere, turns and says, Rabbi, calls him Rabbi, if I take the sponges off your chest and allow you to die quicker, will you promise me that we'll go to the world to come? And he says, yeah, I promise you. They take a HaShavua, swear in it. He swears in it, and next thing you know, he pulls off the sponges, and the fire gets to him faster, and he dies quicker. And this Roman jumps into the fire and commits suicide, right? And a Basko comes out and says, both Rabbi Chanina and the Roman executioner are going to the world to come. Well, the Gemara says after that, the Rabbi cries because he said there are people who acquired their world in one moment, and there are people who acquire their world after many years. Here I am working so hard to be able to become a Ben Olam Haba, and this Roman executioner converts to the spot and jumps into the fire, and he's going right to the world to come, just like that, pitom, just like so quickly. It's a famous story, and we read about Chaim ben Tarajin and what he went through. It's mentioned, but the whole story obviously is not mentioned in the Musaf of Yom Kippur, and neither is it mentioned on Tisha B'Av either. But the most important nekudah in this entire story is this Roman executioner. It's not the part that people would focus on necessarily, but that's the most important part, because you can read a book sometimes when it's like reading a fairy tale, a child's story before going to bed. I can't remember which book it was. I think it was like one of these kids' books, and I do remember which book it was actually. I won't go over it right now, the video, but I was reading this book to my child. It's a kid's book. It's a cute kid's book. It's a Dr. Seuss book or something. I mean, one of these books, I think the book is called All Because a Bug Went Hachu. And it's all about, cause and effect and all the series of events that take place after that. And as I'm reading the story to my child, and he's, enjoying it, or she's enjoying it, and the story is going through my head at another level. In fact, I actually used this story. I was in Toronto at the time. I actually used this story as the basis of my Rosh Hashanah Drush when I had to speak in Toronto, because it's all about Shkacha Pratis and how things are connected and how the events work and how the cause and effect relationship of Ma'aseh Bereshis. And you look at the simple story, but the simple story is telling you a lot of information on the side that maybe is more important than the story itself sometimes. And here, this fantastic story of one of the 10 martyrs who's dying al Kiddush Hashem in one of the worst ways possible, and this dialogue taking place, and we're all kind of impressed, not thinking too much about it. And in the end, there's like the story of this Roman executioner who decides to convert, and nobody stops to say, wait a second, this is the guy who's killing, this is his murderer, who is hired as a henchman to carry out this cruel act, because more than likely he's spiritually defective. More than likely he's got a liking for this type of a thing. He chose the job, he applied for it because somehow it doesn't bother him to kill Jews. Maybe even he has pleasure killing Jews, and this guy is standing there like Mem Teshari Tuma watching this thing take place. And what's his reaction? His reaction is, I want to be part of these people. After watching all this guy is going through, they're obviously hated by my people, and we're killing them and wiping them away. But after this dialogue, I want to be part of them. Now, what happened over here? What happened? This is bizarre. Either the story is not true, and the Gemara is exaggerating tremendously, and therefore, why pay attention? Or the story is true, and the Gemara is telling us something, and we got to pay attention and see what's coming out of that. Why? Yet that's the question. Why is this Roman executioner impressed? And not just impressed, but impressed to the point that he gives up his own life to become part of the Jewish people who are suffering and are downtrodden and being beaten up and being killed and being burned, with their Sefer Torah. What's his logic over here?
But he's the most logical person to jump into the fire.
Why?
For exactly what you said. In other words, if he's the executioner, and he's the one that probably has seen he's been convinced of the society in which he lives that there's no value to life, there's no meaning to life. And here all of a sudden he sees somebody who's willing to stand up on principle and hold something dear, and he's watching him die for it, and he's the one that is so...
Well, he must have seen it happen a lot of times. This is like a very unique situation that somehow is it's so powerfully impressive. We're going to read in this week's Parsha. In this week's Parsha, Yosef stands there before his brothers, and they're desperate. They're desperate. They're about to, they're about to like go to war to save Binyamin. They're prepared to give themselves up. Just let Binyamin go home. Although I can't see how Yaakov would be able to survive that either. To lose, everybody but Binyamin. But they're desperate over here, right? And then Yosef stands up and he says, "Ani Yosef." When he finally sees, he can't hold himself back anymore. He sees that this is not going the way he planned it to go. It's a dangerous situation, and he says, "Ani Yosef Oda Avichai," and they're totally dumbfounded, and they're totally taken aback, They can't speak. So the classic answer: why can't they speak? Because all of a sudden, wait a second, you're Yosef, and this and 22 years ago, they barely can hear him because they're going through the whole cheshbon in their head about how wrong they were and how they thought they were right, even though Yaakov wouldn't be consoled, and they felt bad about the situation, but they probably still thought they had justification to sell Yosef and to get rid of him, and even though they want to find him now, but nevertheless, now were they wrong? But now, Ani Yosef, and his dreams are fulfilled right before their very eyes, and he's the viceroy of Egypt, and everyone's bowing down to him. And it's like totally speechless, because nothing is worse than finding out that everything you've done for the last 22 years is totally a sheker, totally false. You built your life on a certain premise that you thought was true. Turns out the premise, not just an aspect of the premise is wrong, the whole premise is wrong. The whole premise is wrong. So now, the trouble we caused Yosef and our father, all that, so of course you're speechless. Unless you're also speechless for a different reason as well. Right? Shmuel and Navi, he stands there at Har Carmel. Right, this whole thing with Achav and Izebel, right? That's the best thing in the world for this. It's like Izebel, right? She's and she's like they're killing off the Nevi'im, the prophets, and the whole thing, and Eliyahu, and she's forced them to worship the Baal and Eliyahu, but they're sitting on the fence. They won't go to the Baal and they won't go to Hashem necessarily. They're sitting on the fence because Baruch Hu, he hates fence sitting. Take responsibility for your decision. Either go right or go wrong, but take responsibility. None of this fence sitting over here. So Eliyahu says, let's have a showdown. A little showdown over here, right? So they call it by Har Carmel, right? And they go up there, and they both build mizbechs, right? Mizbechot, and one for the Baal and one for Kosh Baruch Hu. And the Baal, it's actually quite a comical story, the whole thing. It's actually very entertaining how Eliyahu handles this entire thing. He mocks them, maybe he can't hear you, speak a little bit louder, a little bit more fire. In the end, of course, they're a complete failure, right before the eyes of the people. They're all watching, who's going to win this contest? It's like Korach and Moshe, everyone's standing back and watching this contest, this war take place. Who's going to win in the end, right? And then, so Eliyahu says, okay, fine, you guys had your chance. Obviously, it's not working. You guys are a failure, okay? Let me do my stuff now. So he even goes ahead, takes water, pushes over the mizbeach all over the place, makes it literally that it can't become flammable. It's not flammable, it can't burn. Calls on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please bring down a nace because we're making a point over here. And the fire comes down and eats the korban, and it looks up all the water, and everybody falls on their face and says Hashem Elokim, Hashem Elokim. Right? That just as a side, the Rizal brings down. He says over in Shar Gilgulim that Nadav and Avihu were inside Shmuel at that time, and when they were inside Eliyahu. Inside Eliyahu, yeah, inside Eliyahu, right at the time. I guess Shmuel, right? Because that was somewhere else. First they were in Shmuel, then they went back to Eliyahu, right? And when this Hashem Elokim, and they all fell on their face and didn't look at the Shechina coming down, that was a tikkun for Nadav and Avihu, who looked at the Kosh Baruch Hu back at Har Sinai. This whole episode, it's all tied together. Nadav and Avihu is a very interesting thread through history. But this thing takes place, and they all,
for Eliyahu and Avi.
For
the people.
It was for Nadav and Avihu who's inside Eliyahu, right? By causing the people to do this thing.
I thought Pinchas was inside Eliyahu.
Right, but he had to get 4 neshamas for that to work. First, Nadav and Avihu went into him when he did the Ma'aseh with Zimri. And then after that came Eliyahu Atishbi, and after that, Eliyahu Giladi. He had 4 neshamas that came into him after that, but Nadav and Avihu count as one in the end. That's how he transformed, that's how he morphed into Eliyahu. It's a little bit long a story, but the point over here is that this fantastic incident took place where all of a sudden it was clear to the people Hashem Elokim. And why Dafka Hashem Elokim? Because it really should be Elokim who Hashem, right? Because Elokim, you start with the world below, and who is related to Hashem. But Hashem Elokim means that the people connected to the fact that there's a God above who does all these fantastic miracles, right? But how do we know He's the one running history down below? Maybe God walked away, made creation, and went someplace else. But now they realize Hashem Elokim means that even though I can't see Hashem operating history, It's him who's controlling nature too and making everything happen. Because part of the episode, part of the whole issue was the rain, because they were being told by Zevel that the rain was a function of the Baal, and Eliyahu wanted to make the point the rain was a function of Kosh Baruch Hu. So that by causing the drought and this whole thing to happen, so it was all part of it. But the transformation of the people's way of looking at reality, the transformation of the das, right? Here's, that's a phenomenal story. Yosef before his brothers is a phenomenal story that has to be understood the context of what's taking place. You have Chanukah ben Teranjim, who is making this point. There's a few episodes like this where Rabbi Akiva with his students saying the Shema at that time, although nobody converts by Rabbi Akiva, the story of Rabbi Akiva, just the one by Chanukah ben Teranjim. This is such a central story to understanding what Chanukah is all about, which is why, of course,
So what happened to Rabbi Akiva?
well, he was saying the Shema at the time he was being killed, right? And the Talmidim are saying, even now, even at this point in time, you're going to still do this thing and still worry about that? His response back is, all of my life, I've been saying, V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha, v'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol me'odecha. V'chol levavcha, I was able to do, just by living and keeping the mitzvahs, right? V'chol me'odecha, 100%, right? I devoted my money and my parnasa, whatever I had, to Ratzon Hashem. But v'chol nafshecha, with all my life, here is the opportunity finally to show Kosh Baruch Hu, I'm prepared to give up my life for him and for Torah, and I'm not going to take it. And that's his thinking. As they're pulling his skin off with combs, combs. This is all he's concerned about, is saying the Shema and being able to say, you see, Kosh Baruch Hu, I'm prepared to go the whole distance, just like the Shema actually says. I mean, we look at these are heroes. Yeah. These are heroes of the ultimate degree, and we stand back and say, yes, these people are heroes, and we have to mourn their death, but we miss the message what they're trying to tell over to us.
They can't be human. They're not heroes. They can't be.
They're who we're supposed to be, ultimately. Not the same level necessarily, but that's the way we look at it, because we don't connect to what they're actually saying. It's all relative. It's all relative, but there's a message. Chinina ben Dosa, the shorish of Chinina ben Dosa is the chen, right? Yosef is a source of chen. And Chanukah is mushrash on chen. Chen v'chof hey, right? The whole thing with chen. Chanukah is a time to release the chen. That's what comes into the world. Noach matzah chen bein Hashem is what allows him to survive strict judgment, strict din, and survive the mabul. Right? So, what is it specifically that's going on? What's supposed to happen? So, you have to understand what happened at the beginning, right? At the very beginning. In last week's Parashat Miketz, when Yaakov Avinu finally agrees to send Binyamin down to Mitzrayim with the Shvatim, with the brothers, to get more food, it seems more or less he probably figures out it's Yosef down there doing all this. Because as Yudah tells them, there's too many clues, too much going on. It was just too bizarre, too much Ashkacha Pratis for just simply an Egyptian leader to be behind all of this. So he probably figured it was Yosef. And there's a dialogue going on between Yosef and Yaakov through the brothers, so this whole episode. Yaakov goes along with it and says, here's how it's going to happen. Here's how it's going to work. And he invokes the name Kel Shakai. He said the Kel Shakai, right? That's the name of Hashem Rachamim, that the God, who said die to Ma'aseh Bereshis, should say die to all of my tzurs, all of my troubles. I suffered with Esav, with Lavan, with Dinah, and Yosef, and this and that, non-stop suffering. So Kodesh Baruch Hu, he can stop the whole thing. The same way he stopped the light coming to Ma'aseh Bereshis is the same way he should stop my tzuris as well. He's not just saying that. There's a connection going on a very deep level.
Where is this being said now?
In Parshas Miketz, right before the 6th Aliyah, I think, where he finally sends it back down to Mitzrayim with the food, with the pistachios and the money and all that, before the unfolding of the final scene over there, right?
Well, what does he say exactly?
He said that Kel Shakai should have mercy upon us and you should be successful in your mission. So Rashi explains why Dafka that name did he use it, because of the name, the Shakai has the name die inside of it, right? Because Baruch said die to Ma'aseh Bereshis. What does it mean? Because Baruch said die to Ma'aseh Bereshis. So Kabbalah explains, right, that at the beginning, because Baruch Hu, when he first began to make Ma'aseh Bereshis, it was only Or Ein Sof, nothing but Or Ein Sof everywhere, just complete infinite light in all directions. There was nothing that even resembled the beginning of creation on any level. When the Kodesh Baruch Hu decided it was time to make Ma'aseh Bereshis, he began by b'mitzamtzim his or. So Kabbalah explains, the Rizal explains the beginning of his Chaim, which was Chaim, right? He began to pull back in the center of the Or Ein Sof, which is kind of hard to find, and something that's infinite, but we'll just take for granted that's what Kosh Baruch Hu knows exactly where it is, right? And he begins to constrict the light until he has what's called a halal. A halal is this massive void where the light's not inside, certainly not on the level that it was before. No Ma'aseh Bereshis yet, but at least there's the construction site, right? He pulls back the light, just like if you dig a hole first in the ground, 25, 40 feet deep, to put the skyscraper's foundation in. Because Baruch Hu begins with the halal, right? And then the halal is this big void with no light inside. At least not any light that's recognizable at this point in time. But because Baruch Hu wants light, he wants Ma'aseh Bereshis. If the light's allowed to come back into the halal the way it was before he took it out, the halal will disappear. Not like a basketball with a thin rubber, skin that keeps the air on the outside and the air on the inside. The halal is totally spiritual. It's an act of will holding back the light. Nothing physical, nothing even spiritual for that matter. It's just the Kosh Baruch Hu, this desire to hold back the light. The light has to come back in to start building everything for Ma'aseh Bereshis. The world that we know is way down the road. But it's to start building piece by piece, just like the people put the foundation in, they pour the footing, and then they build on top of that, and they put the columns in. Right? So Kosh Baruch Hu begins to build sphere by sphere. As the light comes back in, it's what's called the Kav Or Ein Sof. Meaning the light is coming back in a measured amount, not the way it was before. It comes back in kind of like a thin line of light. This light comes in and starts to build sphere one, a little bit deeper, another sphere. All together.
Like a glass blower, Rob.
Yeah. Well, that's a little bit different in this case. That's more to do with the neshama. But here, there's going to be 5 levels of reality altogether in the end. When Kosh Baruch Hu is finished, what they call Adam Kadmon, Atzilus, Bri, Yitzir, Asiyah, 5 levels of reality, each one possessing 10 spheres. But they don't exist yet. He's creating them one by one from the outside in. Comes in, the light makes one big, huge sphere, right? A little bit further, and there's like sub-spheres, and it's very complex. It's very detailed.
What's the outer one? What's the outer one?
The outer reality is called Adam Kadmon. Then there's a thin layer, and there's Or Ein Sof outside of all of that. Right? The first one's called Adam Kadmon, which literally means the first man.
Is that the lowest level?
That's the highest level.
The highest
that corresponds to Kesser in the spheres. Then comes Atzilus, which is going to correspond to Chachma. Then comes Bria, which corresponds to Bina. Then comes Yitzira, which means formation. And then basically the 6 days of creation are tracing the light as it goes further down into the halal. Right? We look at it like, going literally the history that's being spoken about, but really it's actually going down vertically as the light goes further down, it creates more, creates more, creates more. That's the basic idea. So, 5 levels, each possessing 10 sub-levels, basically, 10 sfirot, right? So 5 times 10, of course, is 50. So Kosh Baruch Hu allows the light to penetrate, and everywhere the light penetrates, you have perfection. Because Kosh Baruch Hu's light is Or Ein Sof, is perfection. So it creates this level is perfect, this level is perfect, this level is perfect. But as the light goes down, it begins filtered as well. In order to be able to make a distinction between one level and another level, right? For example, if let's say a father gave birth to a son just like himself, like in full form, right? And then that one, so there'd be no distinction anymore between the grandfather, the father, the son. It'd be very hard to know who's who. Just like Avram prayed that older people get gray hair, to recognize who's the older person in the crowd. So you can show cover to the proper person. Before that, everybody looked the same age. So in order to have different levels of the spheres, you have to hold back some of the light. So the lower levels are literally lower levels. So it happens basically, at one point in time, because Baruch Hu says the light has to stop, because if it keeps going to the very bottom, even though it's being filtered, there'll be no place for evil to exist. No place for God for his reality to be hidden. So therefore he stops the light at a certain point from the bottom in order to leave room for man to complete the perfection of Ma'aseh Bereshis through his free will. That's Kabbalah 101, basically. That's the basic idea. Where does he stop the light? So therefore, it's explained, that's why it says die. Kosh Baruch Hu said die, enough. The Hebrew word actually means enough, but the gematria of the word die is 14. Right, it's 14. So if you take 50 levels, it has to go down, but it stops 14 levels short from the bottom. What's left basically is 36 levels. It means the light actually penetrated into Ma'aseh Bereshis, into what the halal, to make Ma'aseh Bereshis, 36 levels, but stops 14 levels from the bottom. So that man, through his efforts, through his Ma'asim, can actually participate in the perfection of creation by drawing the light of 36 to the very bottom of creation. That's the basic idea.
So 36 is our realm then?
36 is not our realm. Our realm is actually below that. We were originally before the chet part of that upper realm. Because of the chet.
When it comes to 14 is going from the outer envelope to
Right. It goes down 36 levels.
That's the realm of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right?
That's the Shemayim and all the upper levels, basically higher levels.
It says God stopped it there. But in
the beginning, we were actually above that level. At the beginning, we were part of the upper 36 levels. We were very, very high before the chet.
Part of the 36 levels?
Our reality existed, for the most part, as part of those 36 levels, yes. The result of the chet was we sunk down into the 14 levels. Creation sunk down to the 14 levels. We left the 36 levels.
I'm confused. The 36. Where's it? The 30. I'm lost you. The 36. The 36 and the 14.
Here's where a whiteboard comes in handy.
Yeah. All right. Which one? What?
A whiteboard.
Yeah. Right.
So you have the halal, right? You have the halal, and it looked like an onion with levels inside. So imagine there's 50 layers of onion.
But does 50 get to the center, or does 50 get to the bottom?
Yeah, 50 gets. Well, actually, the center is like it doesn't get to like a pinpoint. There's a certain space in the bottom that remains I guess void, but it's 50 levels of existence. That's all that really counts over here. 50 levels of existence, and the light penetrates 36 levels. That's the basic idea, right?
So that's going from the ceiling to the floor.
Exactly, but it stops at one of the upper floors.
Okay.
Right, it stops. Let's say it's a five floor building, right? And each of those floors have, let's say, 10 levels inside of them, right? It goes down 36 of them and stops 14 from the bottom.
Okay, so there's 14 left from
exactly.
Okay, so I thought they went down 14, but you want to see that actually it's going down 36, and there's 14 remaining. I see.
There is 14. It went down 36. It's 14 remaining. Right. Exactly. Right.
Had Adam not sinned, he would have fixed up the 14.
Had Adam not sinned, he would have drawn the light down the bottom 14, perfected creation. That's why God says to Adam Arishon, Ayeka, because the Gematria of Ayeka is 36. And he's saying to Adam, look what you've done. Where is the light of 36? How did you bring the light to the bottom of creation? No, not only did you not bring the light to the bottom of creation, but you're hiding from me. I know you were. I know where you are. Where are you hiding? What you've been transformed in the process. It's a chil l'shem. You totally transformed the situation and made it negative, not positive. So Ayakir makes that point. 36 is telling him where's the light of 36. So the whole point is for us to draw the light down, the light of 36, down the bottom 14 levels. So that's why, for example, the menorah we light in the streets for the most part. People light. In this case, you're higher up and on the table. But people who light down on the streets light within 10 tefachim of the ground, right? Because it's as close as you can get to the ground without actually being on the ground, which is a little disgraceful for the mitzvah. To make the point, you're drawing the light of 36. There's 36 candles altogether for the entire 8 days. You're drawing the light of 36 down to the bottom of creation. That's what we're supposed to do. That's the definition of a Kiddush Hashem. That's the point of man. We're here for one reason and one reason only, to draw the light of 36 into the bottom 14 levels of Ma'aseh Bereshis. If we don't do it, we can reverse the process.
Why did God stop at what is significant about the 36? Why did God stop at 36 and not 40 or 22 or why what's 36? Why?
I mean, it's a little bit.
Die is 14, right?
Right.
I hear die. You say your Dalet is 14.
Well, it didn't have to match either. That could also just been that's a more of a phenomenal connection that it works out that way. But die, you could have said die. There wasn't 14 levels. Happens to be that's the way it was. Mm-hmm. But it's the same idea. 36 is very significant for a variety of reasons. But for example, Elohim.
Was it a conscious decision of God to stop at 36?
Yeah.
Was that His conscious?
Yeah, 100%. That was because
so what's the
36 is a number that's associated specifically with the Or HaGanuz for various different reasons. In Kabbalah, for example, the word Elohim is made up of Ela and Yud Mem. The Yud Mem corresponds to Bina. The Ela is much of 36. 36 actually here corresponds to the 6 spheres because basically the reality of Galus that makes free will possible. Right? Geula is the opposite. Right? The reality of Galus that makes free will possible is a state of creation where the 6 spheres of Chesed through Yesod only have 6 spheres of their own. If the 6 spheres, because Keser is perfect from day one. Chachma is perfect from day one. Bina is perfect from day one. Each of those have 10 spheres from the beginning. There's nothing we can do to take away any of those spheres. That's just the way it is. It goes back to the beginning of everything. But where the first impact of holding back the light shows up is in the bottom 7 spheres. And principally the 6 ones above the Malchus. The Malchus is a little different in this respect. But the 6 itself. So in order for the Galus to be Galus, it means the 6 spheres can't have all 10. Geula is when the 6 of Chesed to Yesod also have 10. That's what happened in Mitzrayim. That's what will happen in Yom Mashiach. You'll have a full contingent of all the spheres, and therefore, B'yamahu Yeshem HaChadosh Moecha, because God's light comes into the world, nobody can deny His reality. The reason why you can have Hester Panim and people denying the reality of God. There's a big fight going on in San Diego right now, because the atheists bought up all these places. Apparently, there's this big display, that's seen, what's his name, he's born. And every year they put it up there, and they like 13 or 18 spots where they do this, one after the other. So the atheists, to make things a little bit more fair from their perspective, went out and took control of these. I guess they rented it or something like that. They bought them, and they left them blank. It's like, there's atheists in the world. They think they're atheists. There's no such thing as an atheist, really, but they think they're atheists. Certainly agnostics, right? Agnosticism exists in the world because all the light is not there in the spheres. The whole goal is to draw the light of the upper worlds down and give those six spheres the missing 4. Really the missing 3 because the Malchus is mushing the whole thing. But to give them the missing light. Once they get the missing light, by definition, there can be no doubt in God. That's Yemos HaMashiach. Yemos HaMashiach is when all those 6 spheres get their light. So therefore, the time of Galus is 6 times 6, 36 spheres. And the Yud Mem of Elohim, it's actually very beautiful. It's much more complicated than that, but it's very sophisticated. But that's the basic idea. 36 represents the possibility for Galus to exist, because the light stops from 14 from the bottom. That's the idea. So our job, therefore, is always to do whatever it takes to draw the light down the bottom 14 levels. That's what I was trying to do.
Didn't we mess up when Adam sinned? Didn't he mess up the 36 levels as well?
He didn't mess them up. No, well, he caused a certain amount of attraction to the light to some degree, but not completely. Only a certain amount he can possibly do that. But it allowed for the klippas to go higher into my separations. There was definitely some kind of a kill, but what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for the most part remained. Yeah.
Is there any possibility that we're ever going to get back to the garden again?
Yeah, 100%. Techis Mason will be very much. Yemos Mashiach already will begin to be like that, but Techis Mason for sure will be like that. That's one of the whole reasons why we have Techis Mason. The Leshem explains because we're going to get a chance to experience creation the way it's meant to be, not the way it has been up until now.
But isn't that going to be like a total gift, though? I mean, we're not going to.
Well, it'll be a total gift, but you'll also only be able to enjoy it based upon what you achieved in your lifetime.
But we'll.
And there's still Gehenna in the picture later on. There's still Tikkun to go through. I mean, it's all.
You've already gone through Techiyas Mason.
Yeah, but there's still a Tikkun in Gehenna for to pay off. That's just the Techis Mason just to repair the body, so it's capable of going to the next level.
Right.
The din still takes place in year 7,000. There's still din coming up after that.
In addition to the din that you've gone once you nifted.
You won't have much of a din at that point in time. The main din comes later on Yom Adin Agadol Menorah. That's the main Yom Adin at year 7,000. The Gemara is talking about in Sanhedrin. But let's just finish with this point because we really do tie back to Chanukah.
I just wanted to get I understand now where the 6 times 6. In other words, the fact that we're chaser, the fact that we're lacking in these levels of spheres, that is what determines the goals.
Right.
Correct. Now, when you say 6, there's 10 spheres, right?
Right.
So you determine the top 3 are perfect.
Right.
So, now, but 3 and 6 is 9.
Right.
Where's the 10?
That's the Malchus. The Malchus, it would have to be a shir in Kabbalah to explain exactly where the Malchus fits into all of this. The Malchus is unique in a lot of respects, but it's actually all for the Malchus. We're actually building the Malchus in the process. Those 6 will get their final 3, or 4 in the end, because what's really 3 because the Malchus
is the lowest level.
It's the lowest level. The Malchus automatically will become fixed up on its own. Right, so the Malchus is really more of the fact of reality once the other 6 are fixed up. So those 6 correspond to the 6 millennia of history. Right? That's what's being rectified from 0, from creation, until year 6,000. Is those 6 Sfiros, which is why the 7th millennium is Yom Shekul Shabbos and Shabbos was Malchus. Right? The Malchus will become automatically elevated once those 6 have the rectification in the end. That's the idea. I mean, this is worth going into in detail, as a shir to itself. But just to finish,
I thought I was deficient in my math there.
No.
6 and 3.
It's a little bit complicated because it goes back and forth. There's different.
Figures don't lie, liars figure. Remember?
Yeah, exactly.
He knows that. He's an accountant.
Anyhow, the point is that's the goal. The goal is to draw the light down the bottom 14 levels. That's what we're trying to achieve, right? Question: how do you actually do that, right? So, when you bring a korban chatos, a chatos is a sin offering, right? Or an ashram is a transgression offering. Why do you have to bring an animal? Right? Why is it not enough just to bring money? If you break the law in Western society, it depends how severe the law is that you're breaking, but for the most part, you can pay a fine, you can pay a knas. Person might end up in jail, right? But a lot of times you can pay a knas and you're off the hook. Why do you have to bring an animal? Why specifically the animal when a person does a chet, does a sin? So Chazal explained to us, because really the truth is that if you really understood how precious life is and how much of a gift it really is, and how abusive a sin is to the system, you would understand that it's you who should be up on the Mizbeach. After Adam did the first chet, he sat there and waited to be killed. He sat there waiting for Kodesh Baruch to lower the boom and take him out of the world because he made a mistake. It was only one mistake. Okay, it was a big mistake, but it was only one mistake. But who says you should get a second chance? And a third chance and a fourth chance? I mean, that's Rahmanas. Kodesh Baruch originally wanted to make this world according to strict judgment. And strict judgment would have said, you make one, shoplifters will be prosecuted. We don't care what your family situation is like, how much you wanted that chocolate bar. You shoplift, you're going to be prosecuted. No ifs and buts about it. You do a chet, you're going to be punished. And the punishment should really be death, no matter what the sin is in the end. But Akash Baruch Hu said that history will not, mankind will survive. So he's mashtatev rachmim, chesed, with the din, and put mercy in the world, and therefore we have a thing called tshuva. And you can have a second chance, and a third chance, and a fourth chance. But, you can take life for granted and say, well, I can always, make amends. Doesn't work necessarily. And to make the point clear to you, you have to bring a korban chatos, an animal, if you can afford it, because you have to know this thing is being killed on your behalf. The blood being sprinkled on this mizbeach to be mechaper for you, to atone for you, it's supposed to be your blood. You understand that? Is it real to you? It's serious. It's heavy. This is in place of me. When you light the Ner Shel Chanukah, it's actually you you're supposed to be lighting. The Ner Chanukah is in place of you. You're supposed to be a human Ner Chanukah. The Ner Chanukah represents the pulling of the Or HaGnuz into Maaseh Bereshis. It's in there. There are 4 places, the Or HaGnuz, the hidden light of Maaseh Bereshis. Because Baruch Hu, he makes Maaseh Bereshis. On the first day, he allows the light to shine. Then because Baruch Hu says, this light is going to be abused by the Rishayim. So he hides it. How can this light be abused by the Rishayim? What kind of abuse could they do? What do they do? Well, they abuse the physical light, right? They make atomic weapons and they use light to just kill innocent people. They're always abusing light. They're their own means, but not this light. How do you abuse a spiritual light like this? How's it possible? The last time this light shone in full glory was Har Sinai and Kriyas Yamsu and in Mitzrayim. Oh yeah, Mitzrayim. Remember Mitzrayim? In Mitzrayim, the Jewish people had to leave Mitzrayim quickly. Why? Because if they didn't leave quickly right away by the 10th plague, what was going to happen? Who's going to pss?
Who was going to, Kodesh Baruch Hu was going to, no, we would have reached the 49th level of, what do you call it?
So we are told.
No,
right?
You told, I remember the Lesham's 49th.
Right. But the Leshem explains otherwise.
We were at the
and the Psukim prove it. Who is strong and who is weak by the 10th plague? Paro or Moshe? Who goes looking for whom in Mitzrayim? In his pajamas, in the middle of the night, not like a king, right? They come to Paro, let them go. Kulan and we think, we're all dead people over here. We're about to be destroyed. Have you not looked at the window recently and see what's happened to Mitzrayim over the last year? Get rid of these people. Throw them out with a strong hand. Just like push them out of here. Who's strong and who's weak? We're holding Memtesh Sharituma? No. Before Makkah's dam began, we were holding a Memtesh Sharituma. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu had not interfered in the history at that point in time and brought the Makkahs at that point in time, so then we would have disappeared completely. But once the Makkahs came, the Leshem explains, the Pri Tzadok explains, Siddur Olam explains, every Makkah, at the same time it was destroying Mitzrayim, was also rebuilding the Jewish people level by level by level. But the last Makkah, as the Haggadah says, the Melech Malchim HaKadosh Baruch himself, before about Smo, comes down and actually is Mofi his or and does the last Makkah himself. Can you have that happening? Can you be Makkah Korban Pesach on Mem Tesh Sharituma, do Bris Milah, and wait for the Gula? Can you convince people on Ben Yehuda Street, Dizengoff, in the depths, in the red light districts, and say, God's coming, quick, do tshuva? They're going to listen to you and believe you? No, it's not going to happen. So therefore, the Jewish people, by the last Makkah, were holding a Mem Shai Kedusha, or Nun Shai Kedusha, actually. Right? They were holding completely out of it. They were like ready to go. They're totally spiritually on a high level. So what was the rush then? So the Leshem explains, because if we didn't leave, the light would have become so intense, it would have destroyed Egypt. The Sitra Achra, the Sahara, and Bechira. In order to preserve Bechira, the Jewish people were forced out of Mitzrayim quickly. Mm-hmm. That's what happens when that light shines. Where's the abuse? How can you? They weren't abusing it. There was no problem. The Mitzrayim were going, oh, look, here's the Oregon news. Let's use it. Come on, let's get this abuse and do why it's here. Let's use it for our own purposes. No, they couldn't do that. They're like, go. We can't handle the light anymore. It's too much. It's too powerful. So what's HaKadosh Baruch Hu worried about? So Yosef says, Ani Yosef. And the brothers can't speak. Why can't they speak? Because the Oregon news that comes out through him, the history and the Musar and the Hashkafa and the Hashkacha and the clarity, it just comes pouring out of him so fast in those few words, Ani Yosef, which is why Chazal compared it to Yom Adin, when Hashem says Ani Hashem. The same thing, right? And they're speechless. Why? Because when the Or HaGnuz comes out, the light is so brilliant that basically it just like pushes everything else out of the way. There's no bechir. The abuse that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was worried about was not that the Rishoyim would use this light to destroy my Bereshis. On the contrary, they wouldn't be able to. The abuse was going to be that the truth would come hit them over their heads so strong they wouldn't have the bechira to be able to do tshuva. There's nothing more abusive than that. My Bereshis was made for the sake of free will. So therefore, when this light comes out, and it shines full force, nobody can lie. B'yamahu yeshem echad u'shmo. Everybody will know the truth instantly, but not because they work towards it, which is what Rashi says. Rashi says in the fourth pasuk, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mavdil ben or lachoshech. There was a havdalah in the light, and the havdalah was to take the Or HaGnuz out of creation, hence the name Or HaGnuz, the hidden light, which sounds like it's a gift for the tzaddikim in the future time. The Leshem says no. The hiding of the light was that from this point onward, only the tzaddikim will be able to access the light because their maisim, their actions and lives will pull the light towards them, but the Rishayim's actions will block the light. That's the hiding. The whole hiding of the light is in Ma'aseh Bereshis. It's hidden from Rishayim, not from tzaddikim, because tzaddikim have made their free will choices already. Because they've already got to the point where they're zoicha to the light. But the Rishayim can't because they have to make the choice. They have to do tshuva on their own free will. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you can't have the light until you make those choices. Because if you get the light before you make those choices, you won't make the choice. You'll have to do tshuva automatically. And that's why Yosef's brothers say nothing. Because normally, what would a person do when you're caught in the act, right? Someone says, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, but apologize now. It was a mistake. You start talking, just like defending yourselves and justifying and the whole thing because you're worried about what's going to happen to you after that. But they can't. They can't justify. They can't speak because the truth is just clobbering them over their head. All they can do is stand back in awe and watch the whole scene unfold before their very eyes. That's the power of the Or HaGnuz. That's why the executioner does tshuva and becomes a Jew. Mm-hmm. Because he, Pnina ben Terajin, is a human Ner Shel Chanukah. That's what he is. He's literally burning. He's literally burning, right? He is drawing the light through this. This guy's going, what is going on here? These guys are nuts. Who has a conversation? I mean, I've been killing a lot of people the last little while, and nobody had a dialogue these guys could be having coffee in the base mattress where they're talking right now. He's burning to death, and he won't even allow himself to die quicker, by opening his mouth because he's so, either these guys are Meshugana, or they're telling the truth. And if they're telling the truth, I got a big problem with myself, with God, with creation, and I don't want that problem anymore. So it's just, that's the power of the Or HaGanuz. It's so powerful. It comes through his actions. Rabbi Akiva, same thing as well. Yosef HaTzadik, as Rashi points out in Parashat Miketz as well, right? That Potiphar says, he says, I see that God's with you. What do you mean God's? How does he see God's with you? So Rashi says, because every time he speaks, God's in his mouth. He's always talking about God and God this and God that. But he's a memta shartu. Potiphar is like literally, the lowest of the low. He's the butcher for Paro, and he sees this because that's the power of an Ner Shel Chanukah. You can pull the light down the 14 levels into the depths of darkness. That's how you know that's what it is. If your light doesn't shine in such a place, if a person does not still look like a Ner Shel Chanukah in a situation like that, then he's not a Ner Shel Chanukah. And this is the whole concept of being a kanoi, of being a zealot and being a Kiddush Hashem. This is what Kiddush Hashem means. A Kiddush Hashem means you're being a human Ner Shel Chanukah. That's the goal. That's what Chanukah ben Terajin. Now,
did the executioner make a decision?
Yeah, sure.
Was it a decision? Did he lose his Bechira?
He lost his Bechira, right. But he had enough of it.
So how can he make a decision?
Well, put it this way, the fact that he was open to it in the first place must have meant that there was something good about him on some level. I don't know. It's a question. For him, maybe there was enough. Being a Gentile, going over, maybe it was enough, for him. Like just continue in Shalom. It's a very similar story also in Avodah Zarah, about how he became a convert the last second too, although it's very bizarre. There's some kind of schus there, because Baruch included in corporatedom. But the main point, whatever the background to the story is, the bottom line is that he was impacted, his mushpai was affected, all because the Or HaGanuz came into the world through Chedim ben Terajin. Now, in the Holocaust, I remember, for example, getting a manuscript from somebody once who was a survivor. A very remarkable story. He was looking for the publisher because he thought I published, other people's books, other people's foreign. It was really too big for me to do because his story really was meant to be published on a larger scale. It was a manuscript on his experiences going through the Holocaust. And I remember reading it, and I was really taken aback by it. And there's one particular story that really got to me. And he was talking about, he survived because some German had Rahmanas on him. And every day put a sandwich in an electrical box. He used to work at this electrical factory somewhere. And every day he'd come to be a sandwich waiting for him. And that's how he survived basically until he it didn't work anymore. But he was telling about one story in the camps where they were all lined up for roll call. And this Nazi commandant Yamach Shmuel comes over to this rabbi and says to this rabbi, he says, "Hey Rabbi, where's your God now?" Meaning we're obviously the victors. We've proven the point. You guys are hopeless and helpless. And so give up your faith now. At least save yourself some faith. And this rabbi, without blinking an eye, just went like that, making the point you haven't faced me. The fact that this is happening is not a steer to Judaism. The Holocaust is not a steer to Hashkaf and Hashkacha. I believe just as much as I always have. This Nazi went ballistic on him. He began to kick him to death and literally kicked him to death in the spot. So you can imagine the impact, but the Kiddush Hashem, the fact that he held by his principles unto such a point, even as he's been kicked to death, right, and dies this way, it's a very negative experience, but it's a Kiddush Hashem nonetheless. There's no question the Holocaust, one of the main things of the Holocaust, was to bring enough light into the world that the state of Eretz Yisrael could be founded shortly after. Because getting the land back into the hands of the Jews at that stage of history was no easy task. It doesn't just happen. It takes an Or. It takes an Or HaGanuz. There's a light, and we didn't have the schuyot. We were not drawing enough light into Ma'aseh Bereshis to make it happen. But it had to happen because we got to a case. We got to a moment in time when it had to happen, but we were not ready. So Kosh Baruch Hu imposed it upon us. He created this situation, just like the Chanukah and Purim. The Gemara says, Esther Minator Manayim. Haman Minator Manayim. Mordechai. Where's Mordechai alluded to in the Chumash? Who cares? Why even asking the question in the first place? The Chumash was closed, and the Rabbanim came along and established a holiday because of a miracle that took place over 1,000 years after. So what are you asking the question for? Where's in the Chumash? And Ayaka is a Gematria 36, an allusion to Chanukah, and here's Chanukah, and last week's Parsha, right? It's also Chanukah. What are you looking for connections for? It's so bizarre. The answer is because the rabbis are trying to tell you that these holidays already existed. They weren't written down in the Torah because this is the way Kodesh Baruch Hu involves us in the process of being mashlim Torah. There's something called the Sheish Ma'ot Vesrim Amudei, not or, what's the word? I can't remember what it's called, but it goes all the way at the level of Aracham bin Kesser, and the 620 corresponds to the 613 mitzvahs and the 7 mitzvahs of the Rabbanim. The Rabbanim is like the Rabbanim. I mean, it's like we're having fun. We're just, playing around. What do you mean? No, because they're already there. So why did the Torah include them? Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu is always looking for us to get involved in the process of Ma'aseh Bereshis. So Purim and Chanukah were always meant to be Chagim. They're a koyach that was always there in Ma'aseh Bereshis. We didn't know to look for it. So what does the Kodesh Baruch Hu do? He creates a metzias. He creates a reality. He makes Matisyahu walk by as this Greek is forcing this Jew to sacrifice a pig on this altar to get his blood boiling. So he takes revenge because that's what gets him going, this type of a thing. You ever see how that happens in life a lot of times? Like you get pulled in situations you don't want to get pulled into, but they cause you to do things you wouldn't otherwise do. Because Baruch Hu, he makes situations occur because that's what's going to bring about a certain result he wants to happen in creation in the end. And that becomes a chag d'Rabbanan because it's after the Torah was closed, but it was in the Torah the entire time. It's our way of being part of that process. Just like Paskin Halacha expands Torah Shabbal Peh. Because every generation we have to add more applications. We're part of the evolution of Torah Shabbal Peh, not the principles, but the applications in the end. So this is what Chanukah comes to do. Right?
So what was saying is it was placed in the Bria. You're saying these call it a potential. This potential,
this energy, this light,
was placed in this energy that had the ability to bring about a certain effect. Was placed in the Bria, and unless we brought it about revealed it ourselves. Unless we revealed it ourselves.
This is where I'm going.
Uh-huh.
This is where I'm going. There are two possibilities, right? The Holocaust, Chibin Tarajian, Rabbi Akiva, everybody else, they're doing what we're here to do. They're doing what we're here to do. They are drawing the light of 36 to the depths of creation. But that's the way it has to happen. That's the way it's supposed to take place. That's the only way the Jewish people can perfect Ma'aseh Bereshis, by dying al Kiddush Hashem and suffering. Whereas Rav Noach used to always tell us, right? He used to always say, to die for Hashem is easy. To live for Hashem is much more difficult, right? It's a one-time thing. You go out there, you can only die once, at least one per lifetime, right? You go out there, and it may suffer, maybe last a few hours, but it's over. But every morning to get up on time to daven, and not just daven, but daven with kavanah, as if it's the first time, as if it's exciting, and put on tefillin with kavanah when you're half asleep, and to bench with kavanah, and to have derech eretz, and day after day after day. I always wonders at making Shabbat. It's how many times have I done this? How many times have I taken the tablecloth out, put it on the plastic, sit at the Shabbat table, and Thursday, it's how many times have I done this already? In the course of time. Amazingly, you don't even think about it. You do it each week, it's new to some degree, but to do with all mitzvahs like that. Some mitzvahs are easier than others, but to live for Kodesh Baruch Hu, that's what it means to be a Ner Shel Chanukah, a human Ner Shel Chanukah. That was what Yosef was able to do. That's how Yosef lived his life. He was the positive example of all of this. Right? He was the one who was able to accomplish what Chanin ben Tarajian and Rabbi Akiva and the Holocaust, people who died al Kiddush Hashem, the Holocaust, what they all accomplished this negative experience, he was able to do it in a positive experience, a positive way. And that's what Chanukah is doing. Chanukah is giving us a choice. Chanukah is saying the light's got to come into creation. Don't forget, the light of 36 has to come to the depths of creation. It's going to happen by Yemos Mashiach. Achishenu versus Be'ita. Achishana is you're going to do it by living for a God, by being a Ner Shel Chanukah in all that you do. That the presuming Nisa, that the revelation of Kodesh Baruch will come out through you and your action. People look and say, yeah, God's with this guy. Right? God's with the Jewish people. Right? And Eretz Yisrael and Aliyah, it's all part of the same picture. People have to see, it's all, whatever the Torah paints as a final picture of Klal Yisrael, they have to be able to see it through us, what we're doing, and how we live our lives. And if you're not going to do it that way, it's going to happen through you instead. That's Be'ita. That's going to be the Holocaust. That's going to be the
That's why I
pogroms.
keep saying through, I guess like you're saying through Yosef, everywhere he went, every experience he was in, they always said, God must be with him.
Yeah.
God must be.
And that's why he spent 2 extra years in jail. Because when he turned, he was okay until he said to the wine steward, right? When he first said, "Do me a favor, when you get out, mention me, get me out of this place, please. I don't want to be here anymore." Right? Fine, that's understandable. Who wants to be in a place like this, right? That's the wine steward was not a nice guy, so he didn't do it in the end. But certainly it was reasonable to ask for that. When Yosef comes along and he adds, "Because I'm here for no good reason. I was kidnapped from my brothers, nasty people, right? And I was put in this jail because of an accusation of my employer's wife. And I'm not. There's no hashkach. There's no good for me to be here right now." That's the message that comes out from his words.
That's counter to his whole nature.
Exactly. So Kodesh Baruch Hu says, okay. So stick it out another 2 years until you realize that that's not what you're supposed to be about. So finally, he comes out 2 years later. The whole thing, boom, happens. He's put before Paro. So now he's a changed man. Not just 2 years older. He's a changed man. He comes out and says, everything is mishamayim. It's all for the good. It's all a Kodesh Baruch Hu. He runs the whole world. He's going to make the family. He's going to make the plan. It's all, no, I'm just a what? A conduit for the Or HaGanuz. That's all I can ever be, is a conduit for the Or HaGanuz. Now he's a Ner Shel Chanukah, like he was before, and now he's on a much higher level. And that's why when the brothers finally come down and stand before him and he says, "Ani Yosef," they're totally it's just total tshuva on the spot. Why? Because that's the power of the Or HaGanuz. It is the power to take the depths of darkness and transform it into light. It is the power to take Rishon and either destroy them, like it was going to happen in Mitzrayim, or make them do tshuva on the spot. That's the choice the Chanukah presents to us. We're going to pack up the Ner Shel Chanukah. Those the last ones flicker out over here, right? We're going to pack it up. We're going to wash it away. But it's the choice that leaves behind, right? It's the light of Yemos HaMashiach. Because Baruch Hu says, you can create this now through your life. And not only are you going to be Kiddush Hashem and rectify the world, but here's the best part of all. You can rise above the Teva. And you can see what's happening right now historically. We're being lined up for it, right? The world is ganging up once again on the Jewish people. Everybody knows there's Jews out in Chutz La'aretz right now where they say, I don't want to be there right now because that's where it's all going to take place. Everybody knows there's going to be a major war at some point in time, whether it's by Iran or Syria or whoever knows who's going to attack us. But small little tiny little state is going to be under attack at some point in time against tremendous odds. And people are banking it's going to be a real down-to-earth Asaph-type war, and therefore it's a numbers game. They all want to stay there. Or the miracles that are going to happen, like Chazal say, way bigger and better than anything we've ever experienced. Right? So, that's the ultimate Ner Shel Chanukah. We will win. And we will win in a phenomenally miraculous way, the same way we're catching the world's attention right now, just through technology. And all the good, and the economy, and the building, and what's happened in 70 years, it's going to be even bigger when the miracle finally takes place to save Klal Yisrael. The question is, are we going to be that Kiddush Hashem now in advance of it? Because once it starts happening, you get pushed to the side. It'll be such a big show that everybody else will just become small compared to it. This is the time of opportunity to be able to be a human Ner Shel Chanukah, but in a positive way, not the negative way. Because, ultimately speaking, just to finish off the point, would it have changed anything if the Hashmonaim had died in battle?
Would it have changed anything if they died in battle?
What would have been different if they had died in battle?
They did all die in battle except for one.
Well, they died later on. They died
over a period of time.
Yeah, but let's say they went out to do battle against the Greeks, and it wasn't a victory. They lost the war. It wouldn't be a holiday, of course, right? But what would the Kiddush Hashem have been pretty much the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and they'd be certainly worthy of having a holiday in their memory as well.
And I'll tell you something else. The Kiddush Hashem might have even been greater. Because when you read what happened at the end, they had Hashmonaim had a very unhappy ending.
Absolutely right, 100%. So it would have been a much happier spiritual ending, so to speak, because they would have got it in a blaze of glory.
Exactly.
Right. The question is, so then why is it that because Baruch Hu did all this fantastic miracle and plus the Shem and Zaysadol, just have a holiday? Perhaps that's also part of the reason too as well. The problem is not with them. The problem is with us. right? We can't hear that Kiddush Hashem if they die in battle. When this rabbi was being kicked to death by this German, you can be sure, this Nazi, actually, you can be sure there are people there watching saying, where's his God now? Where's our God now? Right? There are people who are saying, wow, it's a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. This boy, he's going to the world to come. Other people would have said, I don't see the Kiddush Hashem. He was kicked to death by a German. This German made a total laughing stock of this person and killed him in the process for Zamunah. Right? Where's God now? The problem is people can't hear the Kiddush Hashem. So Chanukah there's two schuyot you can have when you're being a kanoi. Number one, the schus could be that you can die in battle. You'll have the opportunity to rise to the occasion and go out in a blaze of glory. That's one schus. And the second schus is you'll be able to do it in a way that everybody else will hear about it and learn from it and see it as well. The Chashmonayim Bezochet the two schuyot. One was exactly that, to go to battle, and two, by winning the battle and the miracle of the olive oil, their Kiddush Hashem was able to be heard through all the generations after that.
That's called the Pirsumei.
Yeah, that's the Pirsumei. So that's the choice that we have, right? We may have to die in battle, but that's because we chose to live a life that was not devoted to bringing that reality out. But if you're somebody who's intent upon allowing Kosh Baruch Hashkacha to be heard in the world, that to be mefarsin in the nes, mefarsin in the Hashkacha, you might have both schut as well. And that is that not only are you able to go in a blaze of glory, so to speak, but in such a way that what you've done will be the vehicle to bring more organisms in the world and to bring the reality of Kosh Baruch into the world. That's the Chanukah that we have to take into the rest of the year. That's the message. That's the Orah of the good news. That's the schus. That's what changes reality, changes our reality, and of the world around us. And through that, B'ezras Hashem, we should be zocheh to see that reality become every single day now, so Chanukah can stop being a holiday and be part of every day.